Hello and welcome to the second ever episode of Full Court Press. I'm Michael Lyon and I'm here with my co-host Rish and our guest Sid. Introduce yourself, Sid.
Hey guys, my name's Sid Rao. I'm 20 years old and I love every sport there is. I started with cricket and soccer, love football, love basketball. I even follow hockey to an extent. So hope I can give you all some good insight on the league today.
Me and Rish never even introduced ourselves like that, but that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that works out. Who are you a fan of again?
Now, this might be a little bit controversial, and let me say I'm not a bandwagon, but the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it. Awesome, exciting start to the NBA last night. The Clippers, the primetime game, the Clippers played the Lakers at Staples Center. Kawhi, without Paul George, against LeBron and AD, we get to see them teaming up for the first time, and it was such a good game. Both teams went on like 10-0 runs. They were exchanging blows. Danny Green caught fire in the third quarter when it looked like the Lakers might come away with it, but Kawhi dropped 30. After this, I am convinced he's the best player in the league right now. And the Clippers look like the best team. You can't help but think like they're adding Paul George to that. The team that held AD and LeBron combined 15 for 40. Horrible efficiency from two of the stars who seem to be playing a lot of ISO, like taking turns trying to create offense for themselves. But the Clippers defense played with so much energy, and it was so fun to watch. Patrick Beverley did a great job energizing. 10 rebounds for him. Lots of effort. Great win to open the season. What was your reaction as a Lakers fan?
Let me be clear, Michael. LeBron James is a special talent, and he has been in the league, and he's shown what he can do. But that man, he cannot be the focal point and the point guard of an offense in the modern era in a high-speed game. If you look at last game last night, they were so stagnant in the offense. It was one of the slowest half-court offenses I've seen that often resulted, as you said, in that ISO situation where LeBron would try to drive. He would kick it out to AD or kick it out to Danny Green on the three, or AD would try to back down whoever was guarding him at the time and try to turn around and make a quick jumper. It wasn't a pretty game. You know, you didn't see Rajon Rondo come off the bench. You didn't see Alex Caruso come off the bench. And, you know, jokes aside about both of them, they both know how, specifically, Rondo knows especially how to run an offense. And LeBron, while he knows how to run an offense and was in charge during his time in Miami and in Cleveland, wasn't the most efficient primary ball handler.
Right. So you don't like LeBron at point guard. Do you think LeBron looks like a little bit more passive than he has in previous years? You think age has something to do with that? Because he didn't look very good last night to me. He wasn't shooting the ball well. He wasn't getting out. I know he had that one block against I forget who. He had a really good like come from behind block in transition. But other than that, the half court was a little bit slow. He looked a little bit passive to me. Maybe he's just getting older and he can't like turn on that switch as frequently as he would like to think he can. What was your comment on that?
I think LeBron's got plenty in the tank, and here's the thing. I agree. It looked a little bit lethargic last night. And, you know, the Clippers, no shade against them. They're one of pre-Paul George and Kawhi, they were one of the best defensive teams, and they had an incredible vocal leader in Patrick Beverley. So what happens when you add two incredible two-way all-stars is, especially when they're so good in any system, those two players more than any players in the league, is like, yeah, you're going to have an incredible team, an incredible defense. And LeBron was just so lethargic. But I don't think it's necessarily a result of his age. I think it's the fact that, he hasn't played in 4 months. It's the fact that this team had, 9 or 10 people who had never played together play together. You had a lot of players that came in off of long playoff runs, especially in Danny Green, who I love the light up, by the way, in the third quarter with 3 or 4 threes in a row. It was beautiful to watch. But LeBron's offense, it's good, and I think it'll get better throughout the season as they become more of a cohesive unit. But it'll take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think that this game, to me, characterized the new Lakers style of basketball. I think LeBron played extremely passive. He wasn't really going for, we didn't see those signature drives to the basket where just nobody could stop him. We didn't really see that. Instead, we saw LeBron walking it up to the half court, passing it out to Anthony Davis in the high post, and letting Anthony Davis go to work. And as much as we agree that Anthony Davis is a great player, he's not Kevin Durant. He's not going to take the ball in the high post. He's not going to pull up for mid-range and make a ridiculous clip. Okay, he's not that player. His isolation game and in general, I think that's a very bad way to run an offense. And I think Frank Vogel and LeBron need to work together in order to give LeBron more of a reign and get him more aggressive. I think today, I think last night for the Lakers was a lot of trial and error. LeBron tried to run the offense through Anthony Davis. I mean, Anthony Davis went 8 for 21 from the field. He took a lot of shots. He took more than LeBron, although, it was 8 for 21, 7 of 19. But Anthony Davis did seem to be more of the focal point of the offense than LeBron did. And I think that was a little by design. I think the goal was for LeBron to sort of feel Anthony Davis out, try and feel out how everything was going. And I think as the season progresses, we'll see a more aggressive LeBron, and we'll see the LeBron that we come to know. And regarding Kawhi being the best player in the world after just one game, I think that a lot of players I think that LeBron will have something to say about that come midseason.
Well, here's the thing about Kawhi Leonard being after just one game. This is the reigning Finals MVP. When he's the one superstar playing against 2 superstars, he has better numbers than both of them, and his team wins. These are supposed to be the 2 Western Conference contenders.
Okay, yeah, but we're not just gonna sit here and act like the Clippers bench didn't outscore the Lakers bench 60-19. We're not gonna are we not gonna talk about Lou Williams going 8 for 14? And scoring 21 points. That's really good and that's really great. Lou Williams was a solid player in that game, and let's not forget he's clearly the 6th man of the year by far and away the past 2 years, and he was the primary scorer on that Clippers team that took the Warriors 6 games. But in your overall assessment of the Clippers, I tend to agree that the Clippers are going to add Paul George to what we just saw yesterday, which was a fantastic defensive team led by a truly elite player in Kawhi Leonard. Maybe not the best player in the world. I personally have him in my top. He's in my top 5, just towards the back end of my top 5, but he's elite nonetheless, and he's good enough to be the best player on a title as we saw last year.
All right, the Clippers are deep. They're really deep. Lou Williams is really good off the bench. None of that is that's a big reason why they won the game. Frank Vogel was definitely outcoached by Doc Rivers. Their rotations were really good and interesting. They started Zubac, who played 10 minutes, and then went to Patterson started as well, played only 17 minutes. I like a lot of their dynamics. A lot of their energy off the bench is really good, but LeBron was not even he wasn't the best player on his own team. He was the 3rd best player on the floor maybe last night, and Kawhi was number 1. Regardless of the Clippers being deeper, Kawhi looked better last night. LeBron didn't even look good compared to his own teammates.
Yeah, again, we're going off one night of basketball. Okay, from last night, I wouldn't even think LeBron's a top 5 player on the court last night. Number 1 would be probably Kawhi. 2 would be Lou Williams. Patrick Beverley's probably up there. Danny Green's probably up there because he had a fantastic shooting night, by the way. 28 points. That's something that Lakers can't be expecting, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, if we're going off one night, then why don't we just demote LeBron to like the 10th best player on his own team? Like why don't we just do something? Why don't we just do that? Like I'm serious. This is the start of the regular season. It's also the regular season. In case you haven't noticed, the past 4 years with the Cavs and with the Lakers, less extent to the Lakers, LeBron during the regular season wasn't the best player in the NBA. Like you could make the argument during the regular season it was James Harden or Russell Westbrook or whoever else is having a great regular season. And then the postseason came, and then LeBron reminded us who's the best player when he scores 50 points in a game or 40 points in a game. It's not like he uses the postseason when the stakes are higher to show what he can really do. This is still the regular season. This is still a feeling out phase for the Lakers. Both new coach, new player, new system. The Clippers essentially took their old system from last year and just added Kawhi Leonard to seamlessly fit into that system. There was no system change. The Lakers is a completely different team right now, and they need time to adjust.
Well, the thing is, LeBron, it's been 2 years since he's been to the finals. So this thing you keep talking about, how he just waits till the finals. He's 35 years old.
Playoffs.
Waits till the playoffs. It's been like 2 years. He's 35 years old. Father Time's undefeated, and it's not just that his numbers are worse. It's that it looks like he's lost his step. It looks like he's playing a bit slower. Maybe it's by design, but it looks very conceivable right now that age is playing a toll. It's lowering his level of play.
All right, I'm gonna let Sid take this because he looks just as outraged as I am.
I am outraged. Michael, if you truly did watch the game last night, you'd see that LeBron James had 2 chase down blocks. And like he was honestly in the first half, he was one of the best players on the court. Like y'all can make this the allegation that he was the joke that he was the 10th best player on the team, but he was actually one of the better players in the court in the first half. I think he came out of that half with like 18 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds. So like he's got a lot, and even though his tenure's run deep, he's got a lot left in his tank. And I think he's got at least another 2-3 good seasons left. And with what AD can do and with what the rest of that supporting cast in Rajon Rondo, Danny Green, and all Avery Bradley, the rest, KCP and all of them, they can take it pretty far. And they will get to the playoffs. And LeBron will be able to showcase his ability.
And yeah, I just want to add one more thing. So what numbers exactly are you talking about? He went 27, 8, and 8 last year. I wouldn't say that's far off his career average of 27 points per game. So
As a 35-year-old.
And I mean, I guess we're going off one game. His season stats are 18 points off 7 for 19 shooting. So that's pretty bad, yeah. And if we're going off of one game, I'm sure everybody from Kawhi Leonard to James Harden to every other good player in the NBA has had one bad game. Real quick before we move on to the other game of the night, Sid, are you still confident in the Lakers' ability to do well this postseason? How far do you think they'll go?
Do I think they're going to be a top 2 seed out of regular season? No. Do I think they're a top 4 seed? Still probably in the West. But I could see them slipping a little bit further. But where I do see them excel is in the playoffs. I think definitely first round exit is out of the question when you've got 2 talents like LeBron and AD. And I couldn't even imagine a second round exit with that. Yeah, sure, Anthony Davis doesn't have a lot of postseason experience. But nonetheless, you've got the King and all of his experience and Danny Green's experience and Rajon Rondo's experience. And, I mean, even JaVale has won a ring. Like, that team, even though it doesn't look that way, the first 2 rings, yeah. Even though it doesn't look it initially, like, the Lakers roster is relatively deep. I mean, you consider Dwight, like, what he did last night, coming off the bench and scoring and adding the defensive touch that he did and the 8-10 rebounds that he had off the bench. It was a good casting effort. It just needs a little bit time to melt.
I just want to add, you were talking about how LeBron's numbers were like matching his numbers from previous like career averages or whatever, but you were also talking about how there was a trend of him playing like poorly in the regular season and then proving why he's the best player in the playoffs. So like matching the same numbers could, like it's the same level of input. And it's also worth noting that like Kobe Bryant was scoring like 27 points a game towards the end of his career when the Lakers were winning like 20 games. And I mean, yeah, he's good enough of a player where he's able to score and get his own numbers, but that's not like relating to success. He had Pau Gasol when he was still an all-star.
Yeah, that's fair, but both of them were towards the end of their careers, and on top of that, with what like LeBron has, doesn't even come close. Like, do you think Nick Young, Swaggy P, a rookie, D'Angelo Russell, Jordan Clarkson, like, you think that roster competes with a roster of Avery Bradley, Danny Green, Dwight Howard, like LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma, who wasn't even there last night?
This roster is definitely better. I'm not making the argument that like the 2010 roster would be better, like beat this team. I'm just saying that like superstar players towards the ends of their careers, when they start to become less effective, less efficient, that could be happening to LeBron. They can still put up a lot of points, but their team starts losing. Because normally those players would be good enough to carry their team to 45 wins anyway. Like LeBron, it didn't matter who was with him in Cleveland. There's all that narrative about him like dragging the team of like scrubs that would be bottom of the Eastern Conference without him, and he drags them to the finals year after year. He could definitely, that version of LeBron could definitely make the playoffs with last year's Lakers.
In the East, in the East,
he could definitely take the Cavaliers wouldn't be missing the playoffs if they were Western Conference.
Look at the parity. The Raptors are predicted to be like between this like a 6th and an 8th, or like a 5th and an 8th seed team this year, and they struggled to overcome a Pelicans team that's projected anywhere between 8th and 11th seed in the West. Like, there is a parity difference. So I mean, while LeBron carried that team of Kevin Love and misfits to the final year after year, I mean, the likelihood that he could have done that as a 33 through 36-year-old in the West year after year to the final with a team like Golden State in that conference, hell no. Like, that wouldn't happen, dog.
Well, that's the point. It's because he's like 35 years old.
Okay, yeah, rest assured, we have a lot of differences in this game, but one thing we can all agree on, hopefully agree on, is that the reason why the Lakers lost last night was because Kostas Antetokounmpo, Giannis' younger brother, got 0 minutes in that game. Come on, Frank Vogel, what are you doing? Okay.
Isn't he signed to a two-way contract?
Yeah, I think so. All right, so moving on to the other game of the night, we have the defending NBA champions, Toronto Raptors, opening their season against the New Orleans Pelicans. And that game, Toronto won 130-122 in an overtime game. Pascal Siakam led the way for Toronto with 34 points. Kyle Lowry also played very well. Fred VanVleet played very well. Also, he scored a career-high 34 as well. With the Pelicans, of course, they were without Zion, who's out 6 to 8 weeks due to surgery in his ankle. Ankle, right? Or knee?
It's ankle.
Ankle, yeah.
No,
knee.
It was a tear in the meniscus.
Yeah, it was a knee, meniscus tear. So without Zion, but Brandon Ingram had a very good game, and Drew Holiday not so much, Lonzo Ball not so much. Notably, Alvin Gentry took him out and during overtime in the last couple of minutes of the fourth quarter. So I'd love to get your thoughts on it, Sid.
Yeah, so just to give you a little insight on Lonzo's performance specifically, he started off the game and then he was taken out in the second half and then he was put back on for overtime. But that team, I mean, the Pelicans, they played a great game. It was a fast game. You basically took the Lakers team from 2 years ago and then added Derek Favors and Drew Holiday and JJ Redick to that. So I mean, all in all, it was a great performance. Toronto showed who they really can be. I think, aside from Fred VanVleet's usual bark and bite, you had Pascal Siakam show that even without Kawhi Leonard, arguably one of the best players in the league, arguably one of the best. That he can still hit 30 to 35 points while Kyle Lowry's still going to do his thing. You've got a former NBA all-defensive MVP or winner in Marc Gasol. So, I mean, they just played well. I think they'll hit like that 6th or 7th seed in the East. I think New Orleans are going to be looking into the playoff picture, though.
Yeah, but be honest, you can't. After watching that game, do you miss Lonzo Ball in LA?
I kind of do. I mean, even the commentators yesterday, they were saying the one thing that was lacking about this Lakers team was playmaking. I mean, Kuzma wasn't playing, and I agree that Kuzma is one of like our third only player that can create his own shot, but Lonzo does add a lot.
Wait. A team with LeBron and Anthony Davis does not lack playmaking. I promise you.
It did. No. Did you not watch the game?
No, I did watch the game.
It was the most slow, basic game. Yeah, LeBron had some dimes. Like, he had some bunnies, dude. Like, great passes. But, like, for the most part, it was one of the most stagnant, most boring offenses, and it looked like Cleveland. Last year, the Lakers were one of the most exciting teams in the league. They lost their identity. It got stripped from them. There was no hustle. No one was running fast on that team. No one was trying to push the pace and the transition. Their transition defense was great on our side, but, like, the transition offense didn't exist.
This stuff has more to do with scheme. There's no way you can have 2 out of the top 5 players in the league and then complain about a lack
arguably top 5 players in the league.
I think you can.
And complain about playmaking.
I mean, Anthony Davis, yeah, he's a great player. What, he got 5 assists last night or something? But he's not a playmaker by definition. He is a all-star, a superstar in its definition, and he is a freak. I mean, that guy is a monster. But that doesn't mean that he's necessarily a playmaker. And LeBron is a playmaker, but when he's not primarily the ball handler.
It seems to me like the Lakers' primary strategy was to give the ball to Anthony Davis at the post and tell him to make a play. Like make. Like, that was their entire strategy.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, but we're also ignoring a very key fact here. Anthony Davis does not play for the Pelicans, and Kawhi Leonard does not play for the Raptors. We're talking about the Raptors and Pelicans game, guys. Come on. Let's not get off topic here.
Yeah, but Zion.
We're talking about the Lakers because he's a Lakers fan.
But anyways, it doesn't matter. We can talk about the Pelicans. I mean, the new look Pelicans, the old look Lakers. I mean, they added an instrumental piece who unfortunately is out for another 6 weeks. Zion Williamson, I mean, there were reports that the injury was not related to his weight, which I kind of think is BS just a little bit. I mean, I think that dude's a monster, and his highlight reel is next to none. But I think he's like a running back, dude. His NBA life expectancy is not looking good, in my opinion. It's going to be a short career at this rate.
Shelf life of 3 years max. I don't know.
I don't know. Odom length, 8 years of good, quality years.
I don't know. I get the narrative of he's been hurt in the preseason, he was hurt in the summer league, and now he's out for 8 weeks, whatever it is.
He was also hurt in college.
He was hurt in college.
I mean, it's the same 3 injuries over and over again at every level of basketball.
It's it's a concerning narrative. You could keep going under the assumption that it was just keep more coincidences, he'll be fine. But his weight just seems kind of unsustainable, where it feels like he might be injury prone for his whole career. which would make him a bust. Really, he can't turn. Even something like a timeline similar to what Kristaps has had so far, it would be a pretty big disappointment, I think, because that would be like 4 or 5 years of his career gone.
I mean, yeah, I tend to agree. I think all of us definitely don't have the sort of standard take that Zion Williamson is going to be some great player in the NBA here. I think that he's a very special talent. However, I think injuries could be derailing his career very significantly. And like Sid said, it's very hard to ignore injuries in college, injuries in the preseason, injury now. It's going to be very tough. Also, on the Toronto side, though, Pascal Siakam had a fantastic game. He 34 points, 11 of 26 from the field, 18 rebounds. He also notably signed a full max contract in the offseason, 4 years, $130 million. After today, do any of us change our minds on whether or not that contract was worth it or not?
I tended to think it was not worth it at the time. Pascal Siakam is a nice player. He's able to score, but he's not a very good shooter, and he's still really young and has a lot to prove. So a 4-year max contract is kind of eye-opening and might not be the best allocation of those resources for the Raptors. After one game, I don't quite change my mind. I know he scored 20 points per game in the finals last year, but he doesn't seem like the player you can trust, or even in the future could trust, to say like it's you against LeBron or you against Kawhi, like a best player versus best player. He's not there, obviously. He's not. People don't think he's going to carry the Raptors to more than the 6th seed in the weak East. So having him be like your headliner and max contract player, I don't know if he's worth that much money, even after last game.
I think his 34-point, 18 rebound performance of last night, whilst it seems like an anomaly, is going to reflect a lot more about how the Raptors are going to play more centered around how Spicy P plays and that playing style. I mean, if you look at the way that their offense was run, he was the center point. He was the focal point, getting touches every play. And most of the times the ball was in his hands, bringing it up the court when they were doing full court transition. I don't know necessarily if it's worth it right now, but what I will say is, like, I like the contract more than a lot of other contracts that were offered this summer, including Ben Simmons, unless Ben Simmons can actually shoot three-pointers in game consistently. I like Spicy P's contract more, and I think going forward with Toronto, looking at a rebuild like post Kyle Lowry, looking at that team, I think having Spicy P being
post Kawhi or post Kyle Lowry?
Kyle Lowry, in 2 years, because he's on a 2-year deal. Post Kyle Lowry, like looking at that Toronto's team, if it's centered around Pascal Siakam being your one of your primary players, like I don't think Toronto is going to be too unhappy with that.
All right. Do you have anything else to add about that game?
No, I'm very curious because in the last podcast, me and Michael discussed where we had the Raptors in our Eastern Conference standings, and both of us had them very low. I think we had them 6th. Do we think we change 6th or 7th? Do we think we change that after this?
I'm not after one game against the Pelicans without Zion. No. Overtime, no.
Man, that's really surprising. You seem to be putting a lot of stock in one game when it comes to the Lakers, but not when it comes to the Raptors. No, I also agree. I don't think I'm going to be changing my picks on the Raptors anytime soon. I think when they play some of the cream of the crop of the West per se, I think they'll be proven to see the mediocre team they really are. So, moving on to some of the exciting games tonight. We actually have 2 great games tonight. We have the Celtics versus the 76ers and the Nuggets versus the Trailblazers.
Yeah. So we're recording this podcast before these games start. So let's get into Celtics Sixers because that's the biggest one for me as a Celtics fan. Obviously, I'm super excited to see Kemba play with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You get Gordon Hayward, another year off of that devastating injury, should be really good to see if he can look more like what he looked like before. I think Philadelphia is overrated, and I'm excited to see. I think my Celtics can beat them tonight. I think Jimmy Butler is a lot bigger of a loss than people think. I know that Al Horford went to Philadelphia, but I think it's fine. I think more development. There's a lot of unknowns, but more development from Tatum, from Brown in a positive direction. If those things work out in our favor with Gordon Hayward recovering, I think we're just going to be better than Philadelphia throughout the entire season because we can shoot better in the perimeter. And our defenses could be pretty good too.
So here's where I have to really disagree with you.
If you haven't earlier this podcast.
Yeah, as if I haven't already. I personally think the standings are gonna go, at least in the East, the top four are gonna be Bucks, Philly, Pacers, Celtics. I really don't have a good look for this Celtics team. I personally don't think it's gonna be the end result that a lot of people hype it up to be. Brad Stevens is a good coach. He's not a phenomenal coach. He hasn't proved himself to be he had 1 or 2 great years in the past 5 that he was like genuinely a great coach. And outside of that, he's been really inconsistent. On top of that, Kemba Walker, I don't like think that he's an upgrade on Kyrie, even though you know the chemistry bonus that you talked about last time. And I don't think the two youngsters are going to develop that much in this year.
We can get into this. I want to get on Brad Stevens first because I think there's a pretty bad take on Brad Stevens. I think basically what you're doing is you're like melding like popular opinion of Brad Stevens and like combining it into like he's okay, not that good, because he had that one really good year where he was like being compared to like 2 years ago. He's being compared to Greg Popovich and like, is he better than Greg? His after timeout plays and all that. And then last year was horrible. Like people were like, I can't believe we were comparing this guy to Greg Popovich, and it almost took a neck. So I think my like analysis of your opinion is like you're just like weighting that and trying to like average it out with when people said he was really good. And I don't think that's the best way to analyze what happened. I think like last year's locker room was a really unique situation with Kyrie Irving, like himself taking him away and making it because he had his grandfather died, and he said that was hard for him, and he distanced himself from the team. That's like a really unique situation to deal with, and I think the chemistry issues were a lot of the reason why they struggled on the field. And I don't know how much of that can be attributed to Brad Stevens. I think there's a chance he's still like that really great coach that we saw 2 years ago, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Michael on the Brad Stevens take. I don't think I could name 5 coaches in the NBA better than Brad Stevens right now. I think the only people who I think I would put definitively better right now are Greg Popovich and Quinn Snyder on Utah, and maybe Doc Rivers. But I don't think the coach from the Pacers, Nate McMillan, is definitively better than Brad Stevens. I don't think Mike D'Antoni, the coach of the Rockets, is definitively better than Brad Stevens. I think that Brad Stevens is firmly a top 5 coach in the NBA, if not top 3. And while I do agree with Michael that the Celtics' chemistry issues were due to Kyrie Irving's personal issues, I do agree with Sid's conclusion in the end, though. I don't think the Celtics are going to be like as high as Michael says. Like, I do have them ahead of the Pacers, though, in my Eastern Conference rankings. I just think that when it comes to the Celtics versus the Sixers, there's a bit of a talent mismatch. I think that the big deal was that Al Horford went from the Celtics to the Sixers. That is the big deal here. If we were to accept the premise that Kemba over Kyrie, the chemistry increase equates for the lack of talent between the two, the loss of Al Horford is still huge because now there's nobody on the Celtics to guard Joel Embiid. I think that if Simmons shows a decent improvement, I think that Embiid and Horford and Tobias Harris, like that group of guys, Brett Brown is also a good, not great coach, but I think he's a good enough coach. I think the Sixers are firmly the second best team of the Eastern Conference right now, behind the Bucks.
I just don't know who's going to be taking shots at the end of the game. We want to trust Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid, who are supposed to be the two like young superstar players. I think they're going to struggle shooting the ball. Their size is a problem. The Celtics have a couple of potential counters. You don't know how the season's going to work out, but young player Robert Williams, who's like 6'10", he's a rookie last year, so we'll be hoping for the development of him. Enes Kanter played better defense again for Portland in the playoffs last year than he's been known to play.
Didn't Jokic average like 37 and 52% from three in that series?
I just remember his defensive effort was applauded by the announcers,
okay.
And
I mean, I see the 37 points.
I mean, I don't know if he guarded Jokic directly the whole time.
Who else would he guard on the Portland?
I don't know. I don't remember the
Denver?
details of the series. You're getting caught up at the details. It's really not important.
May I?
Yes.
Okay. One thing I was going to say, a quick retortion to that, is that Philadelphia still has a great three-point shooter that people keep forgetting about. Like, Tobias Harris wasn't the three-point shooting competition. Like, don't think he just doesn't exist. He is probably their designated shooter at the moment. I think it was 2016. But Tobias Harris, as well as like Joel Embiid, will be the closers of that team. I almost guarantee it. I mean, so going along what you were saying with like, yeah, Enes Kanter can defend, and he was lauded for his defense on Jokic. Well, Enes Kanter now essentially has to deal with both Al Horford and Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons all on one roster. And I think all of them are above 6'7" or 6'8" without shoes. So that's him as the biggest player and your biggest defensive player and anchor. That's just a complete mismatch.
The size is their biggest advantage right now. All right, first, your argument about Tobias Harris being their designated shooter is a horrible argument because this is a career 36% three-point shooter who shot 32% from beyond the arc last year. That's like average to below average. Like, as supposed to be your three-point specialist, Kemba is much better than anyone else on that team. And for the size, you know, we're a team, like top to bottom, we're filled with like pretty big two-way wings too. Like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward is a good like shooting guard, small forward, power forward. They're all like 6'6" plus two-way wings who can all play defense. So that could be a matchup for Harris, Simmons, however you want to match that up.
Wait, Kemba Walker is it better than anybody on the Sixers?
Three-point shooter.
Oh, three-point shooter. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I feel like the matchup won't be as bad if we could train like Robert Williams to be able to try to guard Embiid, or Tice has played tough defense. You know, that's going to be their point of advantage. That's going to be exactly where they want to attack. But I think it's like a more narrow advantage than you're making it out to be. It's like not going to work. It's not something that'll work every time. And our like far superior three-point shooting, I think, is a pretty big like advantage that we can try to hammer on. If a lot of it depends on Ben Simmons as well, because if he develops a shot, that's something we have to adjust for in guard. But Boston's been dominant over Philly for the last few years, and we've taken advantage of Ben Simmons in the playoffs, just like letting him shoot wherever, and it's like worked out hugely in our favor. So this year, I like our potential, especially against Philly, and definitely in the Eastern Conference as well. And I look forward to a win in the game tonight.
Okay. Yeah. So moving on to another game tonight.
Wait, let's talk. I know we were talking before the show about Jaylen Brown just got a new 4-year, $115 million contract. A lot of people made fun of that contract as being like as like a joke, like they'll give anybody millions of dollars and whatever. So I'll let you like make fun of it because I know that's your position.
Yeah, apparently they'll give anybody millions of dollars, right? Yeah, I mean, like I think Jaylen Brown is a good talent. He hasn't proven himself to be a good player yet. He regressed last year after a decent, promising rookie campaign and a really good postseason play. This past year, he was pretty bad. Like he was initially a starter, got benched, and became a starter again. And he never really like lived up to all the potential that we were hoping to see. I think that the Celtics giving Jaylen Brown 4 years, $115 million is way overpriced for someone of that talent. I don't project him ever living up to that contract. And I think 4 years from now, I think the Celtics will just let him go in free agency because he just wasn't worth the investment.
I don't like the contract, but I definitely don't hate it as much as Rish does. I like it more than like some of the contracts that were made this summer and summers before that. I mean, I'm gonna still go back to the Ben Simmons contract this summer. What was it? 5 year, $170 million. Yeah, that was trash. That was actually wasting money. But on the other hand, like Jaylen Brown is at best like fringe all-star player, and that's for like 2, 3, 4 years at most. I don't think he's gonna live up to being more than a like 16-8 kind of player throughout his career. His sophomore campaign was really good. His junior campaign was average. I mean, he's the same year, I think, of Ben Simmons. And he and other talents as well, like Towns and stuff like that. He's in the similar age bracket. And I don't think he's lived up to the potential. I think he's honestly, like Brandon Ingram has shown more tangible evidence of future all-star performances and stuff than Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I agree with that.
These numbers are just like you saying like your personal like guesses. I don't know. My thing about the Jaylen Brown contract, I actually agree. Like based on like his value as a player, based on like his where he's projected to end up, or where people think he'll end up, or what he's produced so far, I don't think he's worth a 4-year, $115 million contract like at all. I think like Buddy Hield's contract would be a better deal based on like talent per dollar. It's probably pretty bad talent per dollar because it's only $15 million off a max. So I get that argument, but at the same time, my thing, if we extend Jason Tatum to a max contract, which we better do or expected to do, or max or whatever he's worth at the end of this year, we're going to be over the cap with or without Jaylen Brown. So by using his bird rights to go above the cap and re-sign him, there's no opportunity cost in terms of like free agents that we could sign. It's not like this money is not being taken away from where it could get like good talent per dollar on the market. It's like money above the cap that like at worst like the owner will have to pay luxury tax, which is not of my concern. So it's like having Jaylen Brown locked down for the next 4 years versus not having Jaylen Brown like on your team at all beyond this year. And I think it's like pretty obvious that we're better off with him than without him.
I have a quick question for you. What do you think Lakers would offer Kyle Kuzma as a contract, a 4-year contract? What do you think?
I don't know.
Ballpark. You just guess.
I think ballpark are probably about the same. Like 4 years, 115.
Yeah, I don't know. I think 4 years, 115 would be an appropriate contract for Kyle Kuzma.
And I think personally, like Kyle Kuzma has shown more to this day that he has all.
He's older.
I mean, yeah, he came out of college older, because he was a 4-year player. But that doesn't necessarily mean he has less potential. I mean, Giannis took a couple years to get off the ground running. I just think that Kyle Kuzma, or someone like that, has more talent than Jaylen Brown. And I think just the idea of committing yourself to such a long time period where you have to give an average to good to potentially better than good player a lot of money is just not worth it. And
you're making the same problem. You're like comparing like what Jaylen Brown's getting paid to like what Kyle Kuzma would be worth, like doing it on like a by like talent per dollar basis. But this isn't money that the Celtics could spend anywhere else. It's not money that they could offer to Kyle Kuzma in the free market. No.
Like what you can do is you cannot offer him the contract this summer, let him walk and get someone else in the future through a trade. I mean,
no. See, that's the thing. We couldn't get somebody else in the future through a trade because like the bird right exception to the cap rule, like, you can't trade for a player through that. We're a team that would be operating over the cap with or without Jaylen Brown.
No, without Jaylen Brown, you'd be under the cap.
No, not after signing Jason Tatum to a max extension.
Well, here's what I would do. I would trade Jason Tatum just because of his insanely bogus trade value. I think he's overrated as well.
Okay. Jason Tatum take aside. We're gonna focus on Jaylen Brown a little bit here, but we're definitely getting back to that. Okay. I think that Jaylen Brown. I don't think the right move was to not sign Jaylen Brown, like to leave him as a free agent, but I think you should wait a year because I think 4 years, $115 million is still going to be the top bid for him next year when he actually enters free agency. So why do it now after a regression year, much less, and allow him a year to prove himself and then deserve the contract? If he goes out of his way, averages 20 points a game, and plays extremely well, then that contract is perfectly justified. And I think that, and it would be a good contract in retrospect, but why take the initial risk after a regression year? The second thing I want to bring up is, I think your point.
Should I address that first? I'm going to address that first. Because a lot of the Celtics' problems last year, at least their perceived problems, like people young players trying to prove themselves and get their own shot and make their own play. You know, like it's a crowded, talented roster. Like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, especially, they were the ones like pointed to. Like what if your numbers take a hit? Like a lot of like what they were trying to do is create their own numbers for themselves and like not putting what's best for the team first, but what's putting best for them first, because they don't want to fall off, and now his contract's locked up. He doesn't have to worry about that. He's just going to do what's best for the team, and I think that's a big relief to have. The difference in the value of his contract this year versus last year is like a risk at best. There's no way that his market value would fall like to the extent where it'd be worth it. Because remember, we're a team operating over the cap anyway. So these, I don't know, what do you want? Like a $20 million per year if you wait like 4 years, $80 million. If nobody's willing to pay more than that, maybe
that's a better contract for this.
Maybe, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's almost like it's like worth it, like to pay a little bit more money over the cap. Like it's worth it to be able to focus on team chemistry this year and not have to worry about like people playing for contracts.
Yeah, I think the whole playing for contracts hurts chemistry. I think that argument's overrated. I don't really agree. But the thing I wanted to bring up otherwise was your argument makes a ton of sense if you're willing to accept that the Celtics aren't in contender mode, right? Like if the Celtics are trying to rebuild around a young core of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, then this contract makes sense. Like they're like this contract essentially accepts, or Danny Ainge is accepting that the Celtics will not win a championship, will not contend for a championship in the next 4 years, or at least in the next 2 years, to develop in order to allow Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to develop into stars that could be potential contenders.
How does it say that at all? Like, how is it sending that message? Because like what's your alternative scenario where they are trying to compete for a championship? Then what do?
They would. I think they would at least wait out this contract until he hits free agency. They would at least do that.
You just said it's for winning. He just conceded they will not win a championship in the next 2 years. Well, like this year is like half of that time frame. Like, how are you conceding that you're not trying to compete right now?
Last year, all the talk was about the Celtics building around Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, and with Gordon Hayward to build a championship contender. And now, when that plan went up in flames, they essentially went, okay, instead of going on the all-in plan, we're going to try and develop our young players, and that's fine, right? But I think that plan doesn't lead to a championship in the next 2 or 3 years, maybe even the length of Jaylen Brown's contract. I'm gonna let Sid jump in here. He's got some things to say.
I was going to say, I don't think Kemba's going to see a chip come to Boston, at least for the next 4 years. And an addendum to what Rish was saying earlier, I mean, I don't necessarily think that the whole numbers contract paradigm is the only thing that was like a problem with that team last year. I mean, you can put all the blame on Kyrie, but like reports were, and like I was reading about this over the summer a lot. Reports why Al Horford and Kyrie ended up leaving is because of the young kids and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum that were like partying over like when they were traveling and stuff, and like they got like genuinely irritated. Like I saw like Al Horford made a comment about it. This is over the summer.
Okay. All right. Well, first, there was a lot to talk about with the Celtics, but let me just this is complete nonsense. I don't know, like what this has never been like a narrative with the Celtics. There were so many problems with like their team chemistry and everything last year. Like this like was never brought up. This was like never one of them the entire time. Kyrie had a death of the family. He distanced himself from his teammates. There was team chemistry issues there. There's a recent article that came out that said Al Horford, if he knew that Kemba was coming to Boston, that would have changed his decision about leaving. There's Jason Tatum played a major role in recruiting Kemba Walker to come like over this year. These are people who are like taking their development seriously, and I don't know. I hate to hear that because it's not true.
Okay, as you can see, the Jaylen Brown contract is very contentious. I want to use the last bit of this podcast to profile some of the other great opening week games we're going to have here. Later tonight, in fact, we're going to have the Nuggets versus the Trailblazers. Two teams that did very well last year in the playoffs. The Nuggets got to the second round, lost in 7 to the Portland Trailblazers, who then got to the Western Conference Finals and got swept by the Warriors. Without KD, worth noting. Can you guys go ahead and give a profile on the Nuggets and the Blazers, and you think their chances for the upcoming year, and what you're most excited to look forward to from these two teams?
The Nuggets, I think I'm lower on the Nuggets than most people. I don't think they have enough top-heavy talent to make a deep playoff run. I could see, I know in my last podcast I had them ranked as 7 in the Western Conference. I could see them having a better regular season, maybe getting a higher seed. But even if they do, I don't think it'll turn into anything in the playoffs. Portland, I'm higher on Portland. I think they have a pretty high ceiling. I know a lot of people like them as a kind of dark horse. They have a lethal backcourt, added Hassan Whiteside over the offseason. They're getting Nurkic back. So that's a team that could be kind of deep, kind of talented. I could see them making a run in the Western Conference. I don't know how deep of a run, but I do expect them to beat Denver because I think they're just more talented at the top.
So I think with Denver going along for the rest of the year, the biggest X factor in that roster is going to be Michael Porter Jr. And if he does come back stronger than ever, and this is something I don't think y'all touched much about last week or last podcast, but if he comes back and like has a similar impact on his team to the way that Ben Simmons did his rookie campaign, I mean, you could see that team being so much better than people push it at. But for the most part, I do agree with you. Based on like a continuation of last year, I think they are a 5th, 6th, possibly 7th seed team. Blazers, I really like the look of the Blazers this year. One thing to note is the last 3 years, the Blazers haven't dropped below 4th seed. So they've been in the top half of the bracket for the last 3 years, and I think it'd be smart to put money that they'd probably be there again this year. I think they are they're the 4th seed possibly on that West.
I mean, yeah, I have pretty much the same opinions as them too. I don't think the Nuggets are going to be as good as they were last year. I think the 2nd seed was a bit of an aberration, and I think in the playoffs that kind of proved it. I would have them again, 5th, 6th, 7th. Agreed. I have them at 7th in my conference rankings. As for the Trailblazers, I actually don't think they're going to be a top 4 seed. I don't see how you can put them. I don't see like Lakers, Clippers, and Rockets. You don't think they're going to be ahead of the Blazers at least?
I mean, I think I agree with the both of y'all in that the Rockets are strong favorites to win the league. I think Clippers are definitely the second. I think Lakers actually have the potential to slip, but I would see them in the top 4. And then outside of that, for that 4th seed spot, there's a lot of opportunity to get that spot. I think Portland's up there. Utah's up there, as you pointed out. For sure, you could throw in Denver. You could throw in Golden State into that conversation. There's a lot of teams. I would say outside of Golden State, I would put Portland in that 4th seed spot. I don't like Utah, even with like the additions that they made. Like, I agree that they got like a great point guard. I'm forgetting his name right now. And they got Bojan Bogdanovic. Great pickups. I don't think that puts them into that 4th seed in such a stacked conference. I think they're more of a 6th seed team.
Okay, yeah. So I actually had the Warriors in the 4th seed in my playoff in my preseason prediction. However, with Klay Thompson being out the entire year, that pick's looking not very good, admittedly. So I'd like to switch to the Jazz, but it's a little late now. I think the Mike Conley edition was fantastic. I think he's a major upgrade over Ricky Rubio. Yeah, so... And on Thursday, actually, because our next podcast is going to be on Friday, catch us with Connor Grohl on Friday. On Thursday, we're going to have the Bucks and the Rockets season opener. That's going to be a great game. And the Clippers and Warriors are actually going to be opening their seasons. So I'd like to get you guys' opinions on the Bucks, Rockets, and the Warriors moving forward, because I think we've already seen enough of the Clippers and how good they're going to be.
Yeah, Bucks Rockets is a good one. It's going to be good to see Russ play with Harden for the first time in a regular season game. Obviously, Giannis is really good, but the Bucks lost some pieces. They lost Brogdon and they lost Mirotic as well this offseason. So those are some 2 key rotation players. I don't really know who's going to win that game, to be honest, but I'm excited to see Russ and Rockets red.
So I'm not too hopeful for the Rockets in the postseason. That's just my personal belief that they're not built for the success. But I think in the regular season they're gonna kill it. The tandem, the hard hitting tandem of the 2 of the point guards, I'm blanking out on their names. They're gonna kill it. Yes, I'm sorry. I absolutely just blanked out. James Harden and Russell Westbrook. They're absolutely gonna put fire into the West. I think the Bucks, even though they lost Brogdon, they still have Bledsoe, I believe. They have pieces. Middleton's only gonna grow. On top of that, they kept Brook Lopez, which a lot of their system relied on that Brook Lopez Greek Freak tandems and split. So I think they'll still be the favorites to come out of the East. And I think the Rockets will be one of the most exciting to watch in the regular season.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that assessment about the Bucks. I think the Rockets are going to win this game. I think that James Harden throughout the preseason has looked like the James Harden of old. I think Russell Westbrook has come into this relationship with the right attitude about him being the second fiddle to James Harden, which is to be expected. And I'm really excited to see how this season is going to go for the Rockets, because as a Rockets fan, I was a little bit skeptical of Russell Westbrook and James Harden working together, but like I said, when you get the offer, like Chris Paul, an Asian Chris Paul with a huge contract plus 2 first rounds for Russell Westbrook in his prime or late prime, I think it's a trade you can't turn down. I'm very interested to see how this turns out, and I'm hoping that it all works out. I'm gonna flip to the Clippers and Warriors. So big news coming out of the Warriors camp. Steve Kerr said Klay Thompson is expected to miss the entire season due to his torn ACL. What do you think that does on the prospects for the Warriors this upcoming season?
I was kind of expecting him to be out for a while anyway.
The entire season, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, I wouldn't rule him out for the playoffs. I don't think so. I know whatever Steve Kerr said, I won't believe he's out for the playoffs till I hear it from Klay. Okay. It doesn't change much at all about what I think. I think they're going to struggle a bit in the regular season in such a tough conference, trying to adjust D'Angelo Russell to a team that has to adjust with not having Kevin Durant anymore, not having Klay probably for most of the regular season at least. It's probably about the same though.
So in regards to the Warriors, even though they lost KD and Klay isn't going to be available to them till at least after the All-Star break, in my opinion. I don't think he's out. Having torn my ACL myself, I don't think he's going to be out the entire year, including playoffs. I think they'll use after the All-Star weekend to slowly reintegrate him into the team and giving him minutes and restriction. I think that even with that, like, the core of their team still is the same. You've got the engine and Draymond, and it's the ball and chain with Steph and Draymond. And I think Steph is a willing defender, and with Draymond's abilities, I don't think that they're going to be in too much of a rough patch. I don't think they're going to be out of the playoff contention. And I think when Klay comes back, they're going to definitely look to make the splash trio a thing.
Yeah, I think all three of us are in agreement. I also don't think Klay Thompson's going to miss the entire season. I think likely after the All-Star break was my projection, and I think many others. I think they're going to start reintegrating him to the offense. And in my opinion, the gloves are off, man. The training wheels are off. No more Kevin Durant, and that means Steph Curry is going to go insane. I think he's going to repeat. I think we're going to see a repeat of his 2015-2016 MVP form, and I actually have Steph Curry winning the MVP this season. I think that Steph Curry's shooting is second to none, and I think that this is Steph's year, and I think he's going to show everyone what he's got.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad take. I think Kawhi's got the MVP this year. Kawhi's the new face, the new best player. Anyway,
we'll see.
This has been fun. Thanks for joining, Sid.
Yeah, man, have me back. I love it. I love talking about sports.
Yeah, and be sure to catch us on Friday. We'll be reviewing the games we talked about. So Celtics 76ers, Nuggets Trailblazers, Bucks Rockets, Clippers Warriors, along with our friend Connor Grohl. Be sure to catch us on Friday.
Goodbye, YouTube.
Goodbye. Now let's watch the entire thing.
You can do that.